Hi. Tonight I thought I would try reading a little bit of the book that I have on sale this week. It's at 50% off. Instead of $4.99, you can get, oh, well, that's American. At $4.99 American, instead of that, you can get it for $2.49 American. It's 50% off on all the different sites that I sell on and in every country. This is Listen to Your Heart. I'm going to read a section that comes after what is available as a preview on Amazon. So it's not something that you can just go and read there. It's something a little bit extra that you would get if you were actually buying the book. Okay, this is from chapter 4. I will try to read it my best. I don't do voices. I don't do an English accent. I'm not good at those things, so I'm not going to do it because it would just ruin it. And I don't promise to pronounce everything correctly. Sometimes my tongue gets tangled up with my teeth. All right, here we go, chapter 4. This book is about Anne. Anne cradled her teacup in her hands, warming them. She inhaled deeply of the fragrance. To her, there was more comfort to be found in a simple cup of tea than the mere drinking of it. It was an experience to be savored, and this first cup in the morning served as a source of pleasure and a time of reflection. Yesterday had been a series of emotional events. By the time she had retired to her suite last evening, Anne had been a weary mass of raw, exposed nerves. She was surprised and not a little relieved when she woke this morning without an ache or pain, no headache, no stiff muscles, no nausea. She sighed. It was an exhalation of peace. She had never felt so at ease in her own home as she did this day. A small portion of her mind taunted her that such a feeling could not last, and indeed she knew that it would not. Her mother would soon make her presence known, and Anne could not deceive herself enough to think her mother would have miraculously turned into a doting, caring mother, full of understanding and support for her daughter, who, though now in charge of her own future, felt trepidation as she faced it. Upon hearing footsteps in the hall, she straightened in her chair and placed the cup on the table. "Good morning, Richard," she said without turning to see who had entered. A low chuckle rumbled near her ear as he bent to kiss her cheek. It was something he had done all his life when first greeting her in the morning on his visits to Rosings. He said as he straightened. Perhaps it is no longer proper for me to greet you thusly, now that you are no longer betrothed to my cousin." Anne swatted his arm. "I have never been betrothed to our cousin. There is no need to change your actions just because my mother has finally been made to accept reality. Tongues could wag, making it harder for you to find a husband." He gathered a roll and coffee from the sideboard. She stared at his broad shoulders, noting how his jacket stretched and relaxed as he moved. "Perhaps you are right." She took a small bite of her toast and chewed slowly, contemplating her cousin's words. "I was teasing." He settled into the chair on her right. It was where he always sat to break his fast with her. "Yes, I know, but the business of finding a husband will not be easy. Had I started at a younger age, it might have been a small matter, but I am so old, quite past my prime. Perhaps my bloom has faded." Richard laughed aloud at her comment. "You, my dear, are not old, nor has your beauty faded. You are as beautiful today as you were at a proper coming-out age. You are wiser and more sensible than the average young lady making her debut, but you are no less desirable." Anne smiled at him for solicitous words. He truly was a very loving and supportive cousin. He had spent the whole of the evening after their return from the library at her side, fending off comments from her mother, and had shielded her from the advances of Mr. Burrows. She inclined her head in acceptance of his words. "You speak as a dutiful cousin should, and I thank you for it." Richard shook his head firmly. No, I do not speak to fulfill a duty, Anne. It is the truth. I have seen the debutantes in the ballrooms this season, and few compare to you." He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. "And those who succeed in approaching your beauty lack sense. In truth, many seem to have feathers for brains. I assure you, were you to come to London, you would always have a full dance card and an equally full drawing room." Anne laughed lightly, and her cheeks flushed at such effusions. She knew Richard was not a man to tell tales or choose his words to spare another's feelings. "Thank you," she said softly, "but I shall not be going to town. I must settle for the few gentlemen I will find here." Richard smiled mischievously at her. "You could accept Mr. Burrows and save yourself the bother of searching. He seemed eager enough to please last evening." Anne groaned. "If I did not know better, I would think he had learned of my circumstances and was doing his best to acquire an estate. He was most complimentary of mother, the furnishings, the artwork, the pianoforte, and on, but he had not one word of compliment toward my person or my abilities." She rose and walked to the window. "His mother is also my mother's dearest friend. I could not be tied to two such similar women." Richard came to stand near her. He leaned casually against the wall next to the window, coffee cup in hand. "It may be best to keep the details of your father's documents secret until you have secured a man's heart. Many are without scruples when it comes to acquiring wealth and land. More than one young lady has found herself tied to misery for the sake of what she brings in the way of wealth to a marriage." He shifted slightly so he could see the walkway outside the window better. "My brother's wife would not hesitate to lend her agreement to such a statement. The money she brought with her is gone, gambled away. I do not know the particulars of the relationship, but they each do their best to avoid the other." He looked sadly at Anne. "It is not an existence I would wish on anyone, but especially not you. I could not bear to know you were so ill-used." Anne laid a hand on his arm. "And that is why I am so pleased father has appointed you and Fitzwilliam in my stead. I know you both have my best interest in mind, just as he did." "Speaking of Darcy," Richard nodded toward the window as he took a gulp of coffee, "he's looking rather happy after his walk this morning. I assume he met with a lovely lady on his rounds." "I'm sure he did. As she was preparing to leave last evening, I heard him telling her where he might be walking this morning and at what time." She turned to return to the table. "I'm happy for him." "As am I, though I will miss the camaraderie we had enjoyed over the years. Wife and family will change that." "He has not secured her yet," Anne cautioned. "Oh, but he will. What father would refuse the master of Pemberley?" "A father who supported his daughter's decision to refuse the proposal of her cousin, an heir to the family estate?" Richard's brows rose. "But surely if the daughter accepts the proposal of a wealthy landowner, he will also support her in that?" Anne shrugged. "I believe he will once his daughter convinces him of her desire for such a match. But until then, Fitzwilliam will have a hard go of it. I have heard tell he was less than charming when in Hertfordshire. He even slighted Miss Bennet, who is her father's favourite." Richard shook his head in bewilderment at his cousin's ineptitude when it came to Miss Bennet. "Then we shall have to hope the daughter wishes to convince her father of his worth." "Indeed." Darcy sauntered into the breakfast room. His cheeks were rosy from the cool morning air, and he wore a most pleased expression on his face as he took his place on Anne's left side and motioned for some tea. "How is Miss Bennet this morning, Darcy?" Richard teased. If he had expected a glare of displeasure or a wall of silence, he was to be disappointed. The look of pleasure remained firmly in place on Darcy's face. "She is quite well." "Is she?" Richard chuckled. "So the struggles of yesterday are over?" Darcy shook his head. "No, we shall discuss one item of disagreement for the walk. As long as I do not add any further injury, all shall be well in a matter of days." So you are to meet each morning?" asked Anne. Darcy nodded, his smile growing wider. "And after all is well?" prodded Richard. He heard Anne clear her throat and felt a little kick to his shin, but ignored her displeasure. Why was it that women insisted on being so indirect? Surely the more direct approach would garner him the answers he sought, and much more quickly than whatever method Anne had in mind. Darcy looked at Anne with amusement. "I have found it better to allow him to satisfy his curiosity quickly. He is unbearable until he knows all." He leaned back in his chair and rested his hands on the table, one set of fingers drumming a steady rhythm. "I shall be writing to her father directly for permission to call on her. Then I must write to Bingley to determine his true feelings regarding Miss Bennet. Then, well, then if all goes well, I will make a trip to Longbourn to speak to her father in regards to marriage. His fingers stopped their drumming, and he leaned forward. Is there any other information you desire? Richard laughed. Not at the present, but I reserve the right to question you further in the future. Darcy shook his head, and said as he picked up his cup of tea, whether I grant you that right or not, you will still question. Oh, indeed, agreed Richard. Darcy finished his tea and rose to leave. I shall be in the study should either of you need me, he said, and was gone. Anne raised an eyebrow and tilted her head. So, my inquisitive cousin, do you suppose he desires to call at the parsonage today? Richard rolled his eyes at his neglect to find out what. Try that again. Richard rolled his eyes at his neglect to find out that bit of information. Anne tipped her head toward the door, indicating that Richard should follow their cousin. I will be in my sitting room. Please do try to be of use to our cousin. Read his letter before he sends it to her father, and read it as you would should a suitor be seeking Georgiana's attentions. There is no acceptable limit for injury here, Colonel. She smirked at him. He thought to retort. He even opened his mouth to do so, but instead he gave a formal bow and said, Yes, my lady. And that's the first scene in chapter 4. Refers back to some things that have happened, foreshadows a little bit of what might be coming up with the nasty Mr. Burrows. I'll give you that. That's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but it doesn't take you very long to not like him. But this book is all about Anne, and she and Richard do end up together at the end of this book, as do Darcy and Elizabeth, and Lady Catherine and someone else, and that's kind of a little bit of a surprise, a unique twist to the story, if you will. I hope you enjoyed that little bit, and remember, until next Tuesday-ish, depending on when the numbers actually change on Amazon, this book is at 50% off, which is $2.49 in American dollars, and it's also available on Kindle, ebook, Kobo, Nook, all of those things, and in all the different countries of the world. So if you go to Amazon.ca, it's going to be 50% off of its regular price as well. Doesn't show it as a sales price like used to be this price and now it's this price because I have to set things myself. Being not in KU, it doesn't show that as well. Alright, well, hope you enjoyed that. See you next time. Bye.